some questions over the phone. I don't know that we want to do that, but I wanted to at least raise that as a possibility to the council. It is disappointing that we don't have any opportunity at all to hear from CFO Whittigan tonight. Again, we've decided as a council that we are concerned not just with issues of water quality, but also with issues of water affordability. We were able to hear from the city treasurer a couple meetings back, and she, as you may recall, recommended that we invite Rob and speak with him about the issue of water rates. And that was our hope and intention tonight. That's why it's on the agenda. We will not be able to do that tonight, at least not with Rob. Of course, we can have a discussion among the people in the room about that issue and next steps and so forth. But unfortunately, we will not be hearing from Rob at all. So we will have to strike his presentation from our agenda. So that's the first amendment that I'm proposing here. And then we need to decide before going any further whether we would like to try and get Mike on the phone, or if we would rather just keep the conversation limited to the people in the room. Does anybody have any feedback on that? Yes.
I'd like to move that we change the agenda and omit our chief financial officer presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to doing that? So I think we can officially make that change to the agenda.
I'd like to propose that we just strike any discussion with Mike Brown. I don't want to call a guy when he's driving about this, and I think we should maybe, well,
Come on, fell over looking for this room.
if we have questions or something that we can maybe develop for him, and we could send it to him afterwards, is how I propose.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the difficulty with that is that, we as council members may receive his answers, but then the question is, how do we publicize those answers to the community at large? Part of the whole idea behind this council is that we are getting people onto the public record and pushing information out to the community. So my concern would be that, again, any answers would be coming to us, and we don't, as of yet anyway, have a very good platform for distributing those. I do hope that at some point we will have a platform like that, say a website or something of that nature, where we could do that. But yeah, as of yet, that's not something we're able to do very effectively.
Could we use the same method that they use to announce the meeting? And post it, and post, the Water Service Advisory Committee, post these questions to, and here are the responses?
Well, so I suppose that's a question for you, Faith. I wonder if you are able to respond to that. By the way, for those who came in a little later, this is Faith from the city. She's been my point of contact in arranging the logistics of this meeting. And just so everybody knows, the fact that our two invitees from the city are not here tonight is not Faith's fault. She was caught off guard just like I was by that at the last minute. But Faith, I wonder if you could comment on the possibility of distributing information in that way to the community.
Well, the Office of Public Health is in the process of creating a website. It would be possible to share information on that, and I could certainly bring that to the person who, handles the website. So I'm certainly, I'm fine with it. I can't envision any kind of problems.
This is the city's Office of Public Health will have its own website.
Like a web page
Or a
on
web
the City of
page on
Flint
the city site.
website, and I don't believe we had one in the past, so we've been working on developing one.
Are our meeting minutes posted or anything?
They
The
are.
meeting minutes are posted,
So could
but
we-
there's no specific page for the water system advisory.
So could we just include it with meeting minutes?
It's not structured in that way. It's just like if you go onto the website and look at where the minutes, it's like the notice, the agenda, the minutes. There's not space for other items because of the way it's formatted. I mean,
So we could put the questions in the minutes for the meeting, and then provide the answers at the next meeting.
and I'm
unless
sorry,
you can come.
can I just make a request? Because I can't remember everyone's name. It's my first time meeting some of you. Could you just say your name when you, what's
Oh,
your,
sure. Laura.
you're Laura. Okay, thank you.
I just don't think we should keep waiting to post these questions.
Well, I'm certainly, yeah, very open to ideas as far as getting information out. I mean, I think even if we were to put something into the minutes, like, I don't know that anybody really knows that those minutes are up there in the first place, and so, you know, obviously we could be more proactive about directing people to our minutes. But I don't know, I'm feeling like there must be a better way of getting these questions and answers out there in an accessible form. It's nice to hear that there might be a possibility of doing that through this Office of Public Health page, but you know, I'm wondering, like, can we have a Water System Advisory Council page that is devoted to the work that we're doing, to the questions we're raising, to the answers we're getting? I mean, why not have a page that's kind of stands alone, that is related more directly to the work of the council?
I suppose it's a possibility, but in terms of creating the content, I would hope that would come from the council. So if the council can create the content and submit it to me, I could then submit it to the person who does content creation for the webpage.
This is Laura, that would be great going forward, but that just seems like a delay to me. If we're worried that, where the minutes are stored isn't a place where people can go, then we contact somebody at the paper and we put it in the paper. I mean, it seems to me that we've just gone, you know, when we have to schedule meetings and such, that we just are delaying further what the people in Flint need as far as water affordability. And I don't want the failure to be able to communicate to be the reason that we fail to move forward.
Yeah, Larry, do you have?
Would it be helpful to have a YouTube page where it's just called Water Service Advisory Council Updates, and have the questions read and answered? Does that cost money?
Oh, I mean, but that, so getting onto the YouTube channel has been such a battle, like, for the last, like, however
And that's for
many months.
live.
That's
Live.
right, well, but I've also asked repeatedly for our videos to be archived on there, uploaded. I have not gotten so much as a response from some of the folks I was working with prior to Faith, just to be clear. So I mean, that sounds great, but what I'm saying is that, I mean, I can't even get the recordings of these meetings up there. I've tried.
Okay.
So, if the city's willing to take the initiative to do that, then great. Let's do it.
So trying to just be narrow, I think there's a broader challenge here to try to get information out more effectively. But right now, the website is set up, I just pulled it up, to view public notice, view agenda, and view meeting minutes. So if we just put our questions in the meeting minutes,
Yes.
at least there can be a way that if you direct links out to people, they can get it, so.
Oh, yeah, we can get the questions in there.
That's
It's,
what I meant.
yeah, I mean, it's the answers that I'm
Well,
concerned
then-
about, is
and then
what do we do with
The answers could
those?
be given at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then they're part of the meeting minutes or.
I'm just afraid, yeah. I guess I'm, given how difficult it has been to get everybody into the same room at the same time, like, I don't know when the next meeting is going to be. I mean, I thought we were gonna have everybody here tonight. So if we're asking urgent questions, then I doubt we're gonna be able to get the answers out there
There's nothing to
very
do, it's not
urgently.
here.
So, I mean, maybe these are just limitations we're working within, but, you know, if anybody has any ideas about a workaround for some of this stuff, then I'm all yours.
Are we not set up for Zoom? Excuse me.
Well, we were doing Zoom during the pandemic, and then we were told that once the COVID restrictions were lifted at the city level, we were told we had to meet in person. And so we certainly can't have the whole meeting be on Zoom. Whether there could be still a Zoom option is another question. You know, I think so, but this is kind of an illustration of how difficult this is logistically tonight, because Faith was counting on having help here, and some of the help she was expecting failed to kind of materialize at the last minute. And so she's doing everything. So figuring out how to manage like a hybrid meeting with in-person and Zoom and a recording.
Yeah, I do
That
know,
might be a lot.
I attend the Flint's Neighborhood United meetings here, and the library said that they're doing some work to build capacity to have hybrid meetings. So when that happens, maybe we could get some technical assistance so that, you know, staff could learn. But that would be like a future thing. It's something they're planning to do, which is wonderful.
I have an owl, I can bring it.
The owl thing.
The
Yeah,
owl
the owl is cool.
Okay.
All right, well, are we agreed that we don't want to try to talk to Mike over the phone, and that we would prefer to just register some questions that we expect some follow-up on?
And I was thinking questions of Rob, but yeah. I guess-
And of Rob as well,
Right.
yeah, sure. Okay,
I think
Larry
Larry
had
had
a-
a question.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
wouldn't wanna talk to someone who says they're driving to a family emergency.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly not ideal. Okay, so then maybe, rather than getting updates from DPW Mike Brown, as it says here on the agenda, we can amend that, and just collect questions for both Mike and Rob, get those into the record, get those to the appropriate individuals, so that we can get some follow-up whenever it is we can manage to get people into the same room. Does that sound okay? Anybody have any?
I think we make them part of the meeting minutes, and then we reach out to all possible parties to let them know where those questions are, and that we need responses. And I don't know, you can pick a time, 2 weeks? I mean, I don't know, seems like enough time.
But, so when you say 2 weeks though, Laura, is your idea that we would meet again in 2 weeks in order to get those
Or
responses?
we would post it, I mean, I don't wanna wait till we're sure that we can have a meeting, right?
Right, so it's the posting part that I feel like we haven't quite figured out yet, like how would the city help us to post it, or is there some other way we can post
Well,
it?
the city needs meeting minutes, right?
Yes,
So,
So yeah, what were the three pieces? There was the agenda, the minutes, and what was the third?
Announcement.
Just the public notice.
Yeah.
public
Public
notice,
notice,
yeah,
okay.
that's right.
So I think we post it, add it to the meeting minutes as an addendum.
okay,
Okay.
I think we could do that, Faith, is that? or-
Sounds very easy.
Okay,
That sounds doable, though. Good.
So I move that we use our time tonight, or at least at this point, to collect questions, to write and collect questions of both Mike Brown related to the system and to Rob Whittigan related to affordability. And that we include those questions in the minutes for tonight. And that we give Mike Brown and Rob Whittigan 2 weeks to reply with their responses, with letting them know that we will add those to the meeting minutes for others to see.
and if I could just make one amendment, that we also need to get to that third agenda item, which is the applications we've received to join the council, so that would
Right.
also be on the agenda.
That will
as
be on
well.
the agenda, I'm just talking about, how we modify the bit about Mike Brown.
Anyone have any objection to that plan?
Seconded.
Okay, all right, I think that, we can move ahead with that then. All right, so thank you, everybody, for that input. So, do we have, anyone who would like to give public comment? You know, we can treat this, frankly, you know, given these amendments, probably just as more of a conversation moving forward. I don't know how formal we need to be about the public comment tonight, unless, you know, anybody on the council disagrees with me. You know, maybe we can suspend the usual rules about that and loosen it up and just kind of be in dialogue with each other. Anyone have any objection to that plan? Okay. Anybody from the public have an objection to that plan? Okay. All right. Yes.
Pat's about to die.
Okay. Over here, over here. How about we scooch over here? Sorry.
I had an issue when I was raising my hand. No, I never either.
All right. Okay, so, in that case, maybe we can go ahead and, yes, is that?
Who seconded the motion to,
I did.
Nancy, thank you.
And I guess I am exercising my prerogative here and not actually calling for a vote if there seems to be general consensus. We're just kind of moving forward here. All right, so, we've got two sets of questions then that we need to develop here. I don't know if we want to do them in order or if people just want to start throwing things out there
I
and
think we
get them
name
down, and organize
questions
them.
and we organize them after.
That's right.
So I guess I would open it up to anybody from the council, but also anybody else in attendance. A lot has happened since our last meeting. So you may recall our last meeting was in June. That was the meeting where we heard from the guys from the EPA enforcement at Region 5, and that ended up taking up the whole meeting. Since then, you know, there's been a big water main break. There have been developments with the lead service line replacements. There have been developments with some of the affordability stuff that, you know, Claire and her group are working on. So, you know, there was a lot that we hoped to ask about, I think, tonight. And I guess I'll just kind of open it up, and people in no particular order are welcome to chime in.
If I may clarify, the water main break was in Flint Township
Yeah.
and Lundy Township.
Yeah.
And their water did not flow into the city of Flint.
Oh, that water main. I was thinking of the big Glewa break, but
That
That
is
was also
also
outside
for
the city
Out
of Flint.
County, because the city of Flint has an alternate supply. And now they're in the process, since the leak has been repaired, they're in the process of blending increasingly from Glewa to do the 95% Glewa, 5%, yes.
Yeah, I received the press release that just went out today. Have you been able to see that? That
No.
they're planning to, I'd be happy to share that if anybody wants to hear. It's just, I don't think it's hit the press. But Lottie sent it to me before, so I can update everybody. So there's a press conference tomorrow at 11 at the Flint Water Plant.
Good timing.
For immediate release, City of Flint plans to reconnect to GLWA Glewa water line Thursday, October 13th. So what a press conference will include information about the process of reconnecting to the Great Lakes Water Authority, Glewa, the city's primary water source. The City of Flint has sourced its water from the Genesee County Drain Commission using a state-of-the-art secondary backup system since August, when Glewa experienced a massive water main break. The Glewa water main has been flushed and water quality testing has been completed. Eagle has given the City of Flint the okay to begin reconnecting to Glewa after giving the public 24 hours notice. Any questions?
What time did you say the press conference is tomorrow?
It's tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the City of Flint Water Plant. That's at 4500 North Stewart Highway. So that was just sent to me at 4:50.
So I would, start the deal out with some questions. I'd like to know how and where the city will be doing testing once that connection happens. How many locations and how frequently, to be sure that, water quality isn't adversely affected.
Hold on, let me write this all down. So how and where the city will do testing after reconnection.
Correct.
How, you want to know how many samples will be
How many
collected?
locations
How many locations?
and where are those locations?
Like,
Where in the city with respect to northwest, southeast?
okay, geographic location.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm just not sure that they could provide exact addresses or
No,
like,
that doesn't need to be exact address, I just want to see that it's representing all of the parts of the city.
What types of tests? What types of tests?
Yeah, we want,
What are they testing for?
so would that include pH?
Yeah, just another thing.
Yeah.
I would say for sure chlorine and pH.
mhm.
One of the questions I was hoping to ask Mike had to do with the rapidity of the switch from one water supply to another, because everyone will recall that when they were first experimenting with that, they were going really gradually, you know, like 5% at a time for a while. And then all of a sudden we switched like overnight, or not even overnight, like it was a very quick switch once they learned that there had been a break. And now it sounds like we're gonna switch back again pretty quickly.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, like, to what extent is that disruptive, you know, to the system as a whole in a way that maybe could compromise, you know, water quality?
That's a
So
good
I
question.
guess I'd just like to know more about the implications of switching so quickly, given the deliberateness with which that was done initially.
I have another email that I received from Scott Dungy at the water treatment plant. He's the water plant supervisor that explains the process. The process comes from the standard operating procedure. And so they're going to be following that procedure starting Thursday morning, October 13th at 8 a.m. They're going to start transitioning to back to GLEWA as the City of Flint primary water supply. But the rest of this is kind of technical. So
Go for it.
No. Let's ask for the standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, is
well,
this a
so this
document
says
that is
in accordance with the draft standard operating procedure, we are notifying GLEWA.
So it's just a
So I think
notification.
that the standard operating procedure applies to GLEWA. I don't know if it also applies to the rapidity, but
Well,
I mean, there's
It's interesting to know that there is such a thing as a standard operating procedure that
absolutely.
they're using there, that, because I'm wondering, like, I've never seen that.
I
I'm
think-
wondering if that's a,
If I'm hearing the way it's been read, I think that the standard operating procedure is to notify GLEWA that they're gonna do this thing,
it doesn't pertain to the actual.
the method.
I'm not.
Technical
Yeah, I'm not
side.
sure.
let's ask.
They should have a method, but
Yeah.
we
So-
ask for it.
So to combine both of our questions, Ben, in the past, there were homes where water was sampled as the blend was increasing slowly, right? So we were seeing water quality throughout the city as it was slowly being switched from one system to the other. So what data can make us feel confident that doing this quickly without any intermediary testing is is not something for us to worry about.
Mhm.
And I guess a correlated question is, when they were doing it that way, I think it was MDHHS that was participating in collecting that information. Will there be a state agency that's working with the city to do this? Or is it just gonna be tests collected by the water department?
And when you talk about MDHHS, you're talking about Eagle, right?
No, that's
Is
a
MDHHS
DEQ.
That's
They're
the
different
Department of
agencies.
Health and Human Services.
I know the MDHHS, but they don't, it's.
They don't
Yeah.
usually, that's
They
why
were
it was
doing
very
water
odd that they did. So when we switched to GLEWA,
Mhm.
right? Or no, when we switched to KWA.
Yeah, now I'm getting confused too, but yeah, okay.
When we
switch
switched to
right.
KWA, for some reason, instead of Eagle, the Department of Health and Human Services was the department that was collecting water samples in the city, rather than Eagle. I don't know why, I didn't understand that, but the entity that was coming to present to us on how they were doing that, the protocol, the frequency, was MDHHS. So I would assume, I would think that we should be able to assume that quality testing requires some oversight at the state level. It can't just be the water department doing some tests. And so my question is not only where and how often, but under whose supervision?
Okay, because I know that they do some testing on site, they do have a lab on site, but when they do the lead and copper testing, which is the water sampling, that goes to one lab in Lansing, that's under Eagle, so you're talking about something even separate from that.
And it could be that MDHS was responsible for collecting, and then they gave it to Eagle to do the testing. I have no idea why the collecting of samples was done with, they weren't called ambassadors, they were called navigators, who were working under the MDHHS instead of Eagle or DEQ collecting samples.
Yeah, okay, I'm not familiar with that
Yeah.
process, it's been only Eagle since I've been doing this
Right,
job.
well, and every other time for us, it's been Eagle, except for that time.
Do you have a preference? Are you saying
No.
that you want oversight, or you just want to know?
We want to know who's I think I do want to know that there is somebody overseeing this, that this isn't just the water department checking itself to see if itself is doing the right treatment, that there needs to be another body involved to make sure that there isn't a conflict of interest in reporting good data when it's not good.
And when they did the testing before, when there was the gradual transition, there was a whole list of parameters that they were testing for at that time.
Right.
So that should serve as a basis, as a starting point for what they're gonna test. And I would say that list was, I think, heavily under, they didn't have enough microbial indicators on that list. It was all chemical.
Right, so they weren't looking at different bacteria, just E. coli maybe.
They were, I don't even think they were doing hydrotrophic plate counts, and I think they should be.
Yeah.
So I think, it'd be nice to see what that list is, and so we can respond accordingly.
Well,
Of course,
and
we're
I
gonna be
would,
doing it here in the.
could we say, we want to know whether or not
Mhm.
biologic toxins, I don't know what you wanna call them, pathogens.
Just biological indicators, yeah,
So whether or not biological indicators are being tested,
yeah,
along with all, whatever else is being tested.
right. And I would say at least the Pullman and HPC is minimum, should be done,
Right.
but
So I'll say, are you testing for biological indicators, and if so, which ones?
Right,
Yes.
there you go.
I just wanna clarify, who's taking the notes right now on the questions? Is it Faith?
Well, yeah, I think
Okay, I just
Faith
wanna
is doing it that
clarify.
officially, I'm also.
Okay.
That's- thank you.
Yeah, just, so if we need to compare notes, we can.
Right.
Uh,
Surely the water department should have access to how it was done last time, right? When it was done gradually. So could we just ask for them to compare what they're going to do to how it was handled last time and let us know how it's different and why? And that might answer all of these other questions or.
When you
Or
say, can you be
reasonable.
more specific
Yeah,
about
sure.
last time? What does last
So
time refer to?
When we switched to KWA, there were a set of protocols that we saw, that we saw what was gonna be, samples were gonna be collected, what kind of testing was going to happen, how many homes, you know, where were those homes
Okay.
located? Kind of the same questions I was just asked earlier.
Mhm.
So we'd like to see the protocol that they're gonna use this time,
Okay.
especially where it's different.
Did you get the request for the standard operating procedure though, in there?
I heard it, but I didn't write
Okay.
it down, so you want, I can probably,
would
I
like-
believe that I have access to them,
Sure.
but I would have to dig.
Can we get copies of the standard operating procedure for switching source water?
There we go, good.
Mhm. Are there any other questions related to source water issue, testing?
I'd
water
like to
quality
know the status of water on Miller Road with that construction.
On Miller Road?
Yeah. The last time we had a meeting in June, it was gonna be done by sometime in July, and it's still going on.
I have a question, is that the water part or is that the sewage part, or is it both?
Well, I didn't have any questions regarding sewage, but I was really thinking just the water part.
Cause all I saw was the big sewage concrete conduits. I didn't see metal, and I assumed water would be metal.
Right, but the water department is there all the time during this process, so they're involved.
I thought they were laying plastic mains there like they did on Floyd Street.
Oh, really?
I've not seen any plastic, but,
I've not.
I've seen big cement things.
right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's a question.
Yeah.
You asked a question.
Right.
It's a question, what's, they
Right.
can ask it, they can say it's not water.
Cause most recently, we heard that those DPW trucks, or water and sewage trucks, were vandalized. And they were putting together whatever they could to get trucks on the street.
Hmm.
So the sign on the truck may not match, who's doing the job.
Sure.
Anywhere.
Anywhere. They're just throwing anything out there they can get rolling.
I'd like to ask about the status of the lead service line replacement. That's things I read about in the news, yet never come before the committee, which is incredibly frustrating, but.
I can obtain that information. It's reported bi-weekly to Eagle in our bi-weekly meetings, so I can get you the most up-to-date information, but there were some issues with the database and the changing of contractors, so there might be they're still trying to get the exact number, but there are definitely.
So I'm not as concerned about the exact number, I'm more concerned about what's going on with the whole process as is. Why was there all of a sudden a press release, I heard a statement from Mayor Neely saying that they will be completed on time, and then 2 weeks later, I hear the opposite, so I'd just like to understand.
There were
what's
kind
going
of
on.
conflicting things that went on. Oh, okay, well, you didn't believe it, okay. Sorry. There was a deadline that the city was supposed to meet to have completed this process that was put into place as a consequence of the NRDC-led lawsuit and the settlement that came out of that. And the city has now missed multiple deadlines related to that settlement, so this was just the latest one. So that was actually kind of the first article that I saw that went out, was city misses deadline, but then it was kind of followed up with city is 95% done with lead service line replacements, and that was kind of framed in more of like a celebratory way. It's like, wow, look at all of this progress we've made. So, I mean, it's the same story, I think, kind of viewed from two different angles. Like, on one hand, the deadline was missed, on the other hand, we are approaching the end, but like, we've spent like the last few years saying we're approaching the end, and here we are still not at the end. So, it would be great to know not just the numbers, but like what all is being done at this point to reach people who have not yet been taken care of. We know the doors have been knocked on and all of that, but you know, you still hear stories about people who have been on the list for a long time and they're just waiting and waiting and waiting, or somehow they, you know, haven't connected with the door knockers or whatever. So, you know, I guess I'd just like to know more about how the city is, you know, going to every possible length to connect with these residents. And I think that, you know, some of, you know, what maybe should have been going on sooner was like a really coordinated effort that involved community groups getting out there and being part of this work. I mean, it's one thing to have a few navigators going door to door and knocking. I mean, that's great, but we all know that that approach has its limitations. And so, you know, how is the city gonna get to the finish line? Because if it's just kind of more of the same, we've been seeing more of the same for like literally years now with these last few thousand pipes. So, how is that gonna look different moving forward?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that I've heard is the supply, getting the materials. They're actually doing international searches at this point to bring the supplies into town to be able to complete the final ones. And I would say from my perspective, there's been 600 people that have refused to have their lead service lines replaced. And I would say if I had a priority, because we collected a list of everybody who has approached us that wanted their lead service line replaced, and that list has been, you know, compiled and provided to the contractor. So the supply chain issue, I would say, is the biggest barrier at this time. And, you know, they're working, like I said, with the state to try to overcome that challenge. But I would really like to explore ways to connect with the people who've refused, because to me, I would say, you know, I understand that that's their choice, but if they move and someone else moves in, for example, that will be an issue and the money might not be there to do it. So if anybody has ideas or strategies that they'd like to share, because that is a community-led initiative, you know, it's talking to people about what their objections are and trying to find ways to connect. So
To that point on the refusals, do we have an idea of how many under the table for cash rentals are going on where we don't know who's responsible for the water bill? So as far as I know, the city just can't say, we're gonna dig up your front and your driveway to replace and come in your house to check for a lead service line. So, you know, they're in an impossible situation for some of those people. And then identifying who the actual owner is, if there's a real estate management company fronting for the actual owner, who may be out of the city or out of the state. I don't know the process of how you track them down, but in the time I was with the city, that was a recurrent problem. We have, and then we don't have a required home inspection if you're gonna rent a place. And if someone doesn't want a paper lease, be it the landowner or the renter, I don't know what there is to track.
there was a webinar that was shown last week. I wasn't able to watch it, but it was specifically, it's the Lead Service Line Replacement Association, and it was specifically about engaging renters. And so I plan to look at that and see what has been done in other places around the country, because, people might have good ideas about how to handle this.
Yeah, sorry, Claire, go ahead.
I just lost my thought when she was talking, not only the service line, restoration. And there's not a lot of supply chain issues with restoring people's yards,
Yeah.
grass seed and some dirt. And that has not been done either.
Yep.
You know, so having lived through this whole thing, you know, we got a healthy dose of skepticism when they tell us, well, we couldn't do that because blah, blah, blah. But you're gonna turn my water off if I don't get the meter, cause you're gonna lose federal funds.
The restorations have already begun, so if anybody has
I'm just making a point.
I understand, but if
Yeah,
anyone.
I'm just making a point because the NRDC was very, very unhappy with the progress that's been made in the last couple of years. And some of us did not want employees from the city coming in our house some months ago because they weren't wearing protective stuff and masks and stuff, and, you know, some people said, well, let me wait. I called the city and said, I'm willing to get the meter changed, but can you schedule me for the spring when the COVID situation kind of subsides? You know, they wouldn't let me make an appointment. You know, so, as residents, we're not being treated with respect with all of this stuff, you know, and so we have a healthy dose of skepticism. I'm not saying those things weren't true, but you can't do restoration? What a supply chain about that? And some people been waiting 2 or 3 years to have their yard, you know,
Well,
so I'm just making a point.
I've been waiting since 2017.
Yeah, this is not the first time we've heard about restoration, no.
Yeah.
When I talked to a couple people that refused to have their pipes done, that was the main reason, because
Mm.
they tear up people's yards. There's
And then
still
after-
holes in my street, which is hard to get down Swayze Street, because they never did put cement back down after they dug up the pipes. I mean, we're just ignored, and there's nothing you can do, so that's the reason why people don't want their pipes done into their house, because their yards are tore up, and some of these people are old, they can't go out there digging. I remember when they did mine, it was a mess. And I'm disabled, I had to go out there, mess with the grass, and they took all the black dirt I had. My part of the city was a farm, so I had nice black dirt. They put clay down, which doesn't grow grass. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I had to go buy black dirt, dump dirt down on top of the grass, wouldn't even grow in that clay. So it is a problem.
And that's an important point, because it's not just about the number of restorations, it's about how the restorations are done. Like, if you're not doing it the right way, then you may as well not even bother.
So, can I get your names for the comments, for the minutes? Or do you, how does-
Bethany,
Huh?
my name's Bethany.
So that could be another question for Mike Brown.
My name is Clear.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions related to the lead service line replacements?
I have an issue because there's no funding for commercial properties, so that's a gap in being able to, address this problem thoroughly is not having any funding for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we've been talking so much about service lines at individual homes. Sometimes we forget that there's lead in other parts of the system as well, connected to businesses and so forth.
So the city doesn't have money to pay for switching out service lines or pipes for the schools, it's just residents.
So I think the money that they're working with right now is money that is specifically allocated for homes, replacing lead service lines at homes. Larry, can you speak to that?
Based on conversations, not directly with the city, the lead and copper rules never apply to the schools. They've always been exempt. Then, as you've already heard, we have commercial buildings, we have churches, and other places where, they're not required to to comply as such under the rules. And the city is not responsible for what some of these establishments do. And those are the loopholes that we deal with.
I just wanna add a bit of clarification here. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, lead service lines don't go to schools and larger buildings like churches. But there are other sources of lead within the buildings that are possible.
When we do the water sampling, we do residential and commercial often includes churches.
Yeah.
There are 2 bills right now in the state legislature addressing the necessity of water testing and filters at schools.
Yeah, my point for raising this is that that I'm not saying there's not lead, it's just that they're 2 different issues. So if you hear about lead service lines being replaced, it is more appropriate to focus on homes. But there are other potential sources of lead in those commercial buildings as well, so.
And schools.
In schools, yeah, sorry, I'm lumping.
And daycare.
I mean, but actually, a lot of we're required to do the samples, collect samples from businesses that still have lead lines. So there are many businesses that still have.
They have former homes?
I don't know how they ended up being businesses, but they are commercial properties and not residences,
Okay.
and that is one of the reasons why there's been changes in the results from the water sampling, because we're required to do the testing where there's still lead service lines, and so many of the residential homes have been changed that, we're forced to do more sampling among commercial properties. So I just wanted to say that, yes, there are definitely commercial properties with lead service lines, and I believe it to be an issue.
And to that point, residences are tier 1 properties.
Yeah.
Right.
And these commercial sites are tier 2 properties. So you may see that there's compliance with tier 1 properties. What is the percentage? 95%? But you get to tier 2 properties, there's a lower percentage because they're commercial, they're non-residences. I hope you hear my frustration.
Because I have another question to your point. What about the apartment complex that houses children and families? They're not included in getting their, the lead tested?
I'm not qualified to answer that.
Okay.
Yes.
I will find that out for you.
So I'm just doing a quick time check here because I am utterly determined to make sure here that we have time for a conversation about bringing new members of the council on board, and I'd like to give us, I don't think that will be a long conversation, but I'd like us to have at least 15, maybe 20 minutes for that. I'm wondering if we might want to transition into water affordability issues and some questions for CFO Whittigan that we can get recorded here. Unless there's something else pressing that people wanted to raise, of course, feel free to raise it. But I know people were coming tonight, with in the hopes of getting some more information from the city about how water rates are calculated. Faith, I don't know if you want to speak to that, because when we touched base about this before the meeting began, and your sense was that some of those kinds of questions actually can't be answered by Rob.
I just don't think they're necessarily easy to answer, because I myself looked for the information and am still unsure. So, I was looking to find the latest ordinance. I'm not sure if what I found was or wasn't,
Can you just clarify which ordinance you're talking about? The latest ordinance pertaining to what specifically?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just gonna bring some water real quick. Yes.
So it would be 46-52.1 calculation of rates. and the source I have is American Legal Publishing. I'd be happy to show it to anybody. This is where I found it. It said it was passed 12/13/2004. I don't believe this is the most recent one. Do you want me to read it? Every year, the Director of Finance shall calculate and transmit on or before April 15th to the Mayor and City Council the new water rate schedules with a complete itemization of water system costs for all classes of customers as given in 46-52. For the purpose of calculating all bills for the forthcoming 12 months beginning July 1st of that year, the new water rate schedule shall be published at least 30 days prior to the date of implementation. And then water rates shall be reviewed annually, and the water rate percentage index, WRI, as applied to the water rate schedule shall be limited to an adjustment of 8% in any year unless, one, the adjustment is necessary to provide for all costs of operation, maintenance, replacement, and debt service of the water supply system, or two, the adjustment is necessary to comply with applicable provisions of the city's water supply revenue bond resolutions or ordinances. So that's what I found.
I don't think those rates have ever been provided, not since I've been paying attention.
So I will continue
those
digging and see what I can find.
Crazy to me that there's bills that go out and you can't find.
I mean, I don't think that there's a place to look to see how the rate is calculated,
No.
not since the water crisis. So that would be.
Question is, how do you calculate your bill? I mean, it's the same question we've always had.
it's
How do they
like-
calculate the bills?
Right, well, they're supposed to tell us how they
Yeah,
calculate the bill,
it's still the same question we have.
right?
It's
So I'm
okay.
sorry, that's written in an ordinance
Yeah.
that they are required to make that information public.
So this was passed in 2004, and I don't know if a more recent one has been passed since. So that's what I'm trying to at least find the law. That's step one, I would believe. So I'm gonna keep, I'm sure it's somewhere.
That'd be really useful information.
I mean, the CFO,
You would think he would know that, Gary, go ahead.
There is a civil suit that has been in court since, I don't know when, way before, the so-called water crisis, where the city increased the rates by 35%. And they were ordered, the city was ordered by the court to reach some settlement. And the attorney, Val Washington, and the city council person at the time, Scott Kincaid, I don't think they've ever received any information resolving that. But the water rate increase was deemed illegal. But I don't wanna practice law. So, we really need a lawyer to break this down.
Well, knowing about this ordinance, if nothing else, explains why it was against the law. When they say no more than 8%.
That was more.
Well, it says unless it's necessary. So there's like two, yes. So, yeah, it is illegal. It's a legal question.
No more than 8% increase per year, is that?
That's what it said,
gathering
yeah.
here? Okay.
Unless they can justify it. That's kind of what it says.
And then what's the difference between a water rate based on water used and a water service charge?
Right.
I don't know if they're one and the same.
Well, I remember at the beginning of the water crisis, there was no way of, there seemed to be no rhyme or reason to what the water service cost was to any given resident. It didn't seem to be percent property value, it didn't seem to have anything to do with exactly what part of the city you lived in, it seemed kind of random.
My water service charge always seemed to exceed
Oh, yeah.
the water
Mhm.
volume
Oh,
charge.
for sure.
Yeah.
And so Larry, what you're saying is that you're asking if that's included in the 8% thing, like, or that would not just go up and down at will.
Or if
So
that's
we
part
have-
of the calculation.
Right.
Those would be pertinent questions.
So what are the two questions?
There's a water rate for use of how much water you consume. consumed.
So what is the rate, or,
No, when you read that ordinance, it didn't distinguish between the two parts of our bill. One part of the bill is how much water we use, the other is just a service cost. So, we would like to know the equation for both.
And when will there be resolution of a suit that has been ordered to be settled
That's right.
for I don't know how many years?
Should be ready for settlement right now.
Is that Haman, Judge Haman?
I don't know who the judge is, but I do know who the attorney is.
that's all I have
Well,
on
and
here.
he retired. So,
The judge
How much
retired.
is it?
Yeah,
Uh,
but this, yeah, so this wasn't, it was in his court,
Yeah,
but I don't know who's.
The attorney is still waiting for resolution.
Yeah.
As of the
I
resident.
just pulled up an article and it said December 2020, the city appealed to the state Supreme Court to dismiss the case, and they said no, and they sent it back down, so it's like getting kicked around. But this decision gives them 20-some days to do something, which, who knows what
2
happens.
years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that when, you know, there was more news coming out about all of that, the city was basically saying that this is gonna bankrupt us if we have to pay people back for all of these water. I'm wondering if we're gonna,
Tax abatements won't,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just so, I mean, but that's one of the things that it'd be nice to have the CFO here to give us a breakdown. Like, when you guys say stuff like that, show us what you think that means. Like, show us the numbers.
He responded to me that if he came to the meeting, that this was determined before he started working here, and he's not,
What is this?
the water rate calculation.
Well, but
it's
he has
not
to report it
published.
as.
I'm telling you what he
So we're
responded.
just asking for a copy of it. He doesn't,
If he has to report it every year, he has a basis for that
But
reporting.
Amanda knows the calculation.
Yeah.
If
She
the
knows.
ordinance requires an annual
Who's on?
disclosure of it,
Yeah.
Water
then it
versus
should be something
finance.
that could easily be FOIA.
right?
Well,
And the other part is the city attorney can speak to those legal issues. The CFO can't answer on his own or her own.
Well, let me just say on the record, we as a council should not have to FOIA our own city for this kind of information. I mean, that was the point of having a CFO here, is that we could get it right from the horse's mouth.
Well, and
But it's a good point.
I think the
This is supposed to
CFO
be
should be
public.
able to speak to the calculation, the rate calculation. Maybe not to the lawsuit. That might be asking the city attorney, but.
But just speak to the bills that went out last month.
Right.
How were those calculated?
Right.
You don't have to tell me if it was right or wrong, or do you object to it, or you're for it, just,
did
how is
you
it
get that?
calculated?
So part of what I've heard in the community is that, you know, people are comparing the wholesale rate, you know, that we're getting with Gliwa versus the markup that the city puts on once the water gets here. That's where the bulk of the cost is coming from, as far as I understand, right? And, you know, I have heard people raise concerns that, you know, the city is raising that cost excessively. I mean, by law, you're only supposed to charge people however much for water as you need to put back into the system, right? So nobody's supposed to be profiting off of public water. It's supposed to go back into the water system.
Right.
But the question is, you know, where is it going, and why does it need to be marked up that much? And yeah, it seems like those ought to be pretty straightforward questions to get answers to.
Now, by law, I believe they're required to put any money charged for water service back into maintaining the system.
Yeah,
That's what I read
that's
before.
right, yeah.
So,
And it can't go towards other stuff like streetlights. I mean, that was part of the
those are the things that
problem
happen
before.
under Walling and the
Yeah.
emergency managers.
Yeah.
So, it would be good
They
to
was
know.
using it as a debit card, the water department money was being used
But-
as an ATM card to pay for other things. And that was the basis of the lawsuit
Right.
with
But-
Kincaid. They were just rating the water for.
Yep.
And that's part of what people wanna know, like, if you're gonna taking this money from me, is it going to the place where it's supposed to be going? And, you know, can we know more about what that looks like? Cause people have the experience of having their money taken from them, and that's what we're talking about here. Think about their money taken from them. City said it was going to go towards this, and it went towards something else.
And,
So that's the history that we're,
and to add one more piece to the history, they were supposed to build a lime pit, and I don't know what that is.
yeah,
And it had a significant cost. And that was dropped from the budget, that was back in 2013, 2014, so that the city could get a better bond rating to join KWA.
yeah.
And so I don't know if the need for that lime pit has been addressed. So,
Well, so there is a lime sludge lagoon off of Bray Road there, right? That was the basis of that, administrative consent order. Right?
This sounds like a question for Mike, right?
yes,
Status of lime pit that was,
or any other necessary repair for
Right.
which a water service charge is being administered. Cause they may say, oh yeah, we took care of the lime pit, but there may be some valve systems out there that have not been addressed.
What is the lime pit? Where's it coming from? Where's the sludge coming from that goes into the lime pit?
It's
Beats
two
the heck
separate
out of me.
things.
They were adding lime into the water at one point for pH reasons, as I understand it. There was a whole, I actually saw the room.
So this is an old pit that is no longer in service, but they have to deal with it.
Yes.
It's a pretty sizable pit off of Bray
You can
Road
see
if you're
it
going
from
out
Google
towards
Planet.
Bluebell Beach. And, over the years, one of the issues with it is that, you know, it's near the Flint River, and it's been leaking into the Flint River.
oh dear.
And it was because that was happening that they this is getting into some weeds here, but that they justified issuing this emergency, like, administrative consent order thing.
Right.
That enabled our cash-strapped city to take out new loans
Right.
to pay for KWA, in addition to this line
With a promise,
sludge
with the
stuff.
promise that the
Right.
KWA would be used to help clean it up,
Right, right.
Yeah, I remember now.
which they didn't do.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I just said that earlier today.
Whack-a-mole.
Like,
Yeah.
The movie.
It's like the same day repeating over and over, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Mhm. Do you wanna cover the applications, because we have
We're
20
down
minutes?
to 20 minutes. I just wanna make sure that there aren't any other big important questions we wanna get into the record here.
And I'm sorry, we are not without recourse. If we ask the city for, some information or for some action that's within their power, we can contact the State Water Service Advisory Council.
Right.
Because that's the way it's written.
Right.
If they're not giving us the information, right?
Yeah, so
So
actually,
they did kind of fade away.
well, that was one question that I was gonna bring up at some point, is like, I've had no communication with the state, Water Advisory Council. I don't know if anybody else has, but like, there's a total disconnect between what's going on at the state level and what's going on at the city level. I haven't had anybody from Eagle in general, approaching me about anything we're trying to do with this council. I'm wondering if at some point it might be worth speaking with a representative of that state council to learn more about what they're doing up there and whether any of it is relevant to us. Maybe they have some resources or assistance they can provide with some of these issues.
I'd say the sooner the better.
Okay.
Because we are not the only Water Service Advisory Council. There are several other cities who in the beginning of this process were proposed to us as models we should follow. But it would be good to hear directly.
Well, their website changed though, because they used to have a list of all of these cities that supposedly had water system advisory councils, like the one we're trying to set up here. And then it changed I don't know when the change happened, but at some point it changed into a list of all the cities that should have them. Like, so at first it seemed like these had all been established and they were all operational and all of this, but now it seems more aspirational. So it's hard to tell from that, like, how active any of these things really are. So, we'll have to figure out who at the state level knows the most about all of that and could maybe come talk to us. That's something I can look into for next time if people are interested.
Yeah, I did wanna have a few just sentences about the water affordability.
Yeah, please.
And the timing of it. First of all, I wanna thank the committee who endorsed water affordability at a previous meeting. It's been a while since you all endorsed that. And, those of us in the community are still seeking to get a water affordability plan. We've got these ARPA monies, we've got an election coming up, we've got hundreds of signatures, over 500 signatures from residents who said they wanted a water affordability. I mean, you can't hardly find, you would have to really go out your way to find somebody who don't support water affordability, recognizing that we pay the highest rates in the nation, at least we did the last couple of years, and I can't imagine that's changed.
At least
And that's gonna go into the previous conversation about how is that money spent?
Right.
Why are we being charged? Is what the former, budget director, what's her name?
Amanda Trujillo?
Huh?
She's the treasurer.
Miss,
Trujillo.
He was thinking of the treasurer, Amanda Trujillo.
no, the CFO that was here.
Before Rob.
Uh-huh.
That's so many people, it's hard to keep track of.
I think there were two in.
So Wheeler?
Yeah, but
No,
anyway,
she was a city
at a
attorney.
budget hearing, she pointed out that 60% of our water, charges was going to pay off the bonds. And
So that's one thing, let's put that on the
So that ties
list.
back to the ACO and all
That's
this stuff,
right.
but the point of it is that we need an intervention in the city of Flint. And this historic money, this opera money, should be leveraged to create relief for the residents. I mean, after what we have been through as it relates to water, we should be having some dynamic sea change, resolutions. We're not gonna get that much from the settlement.
Okay.
We need something to help restore and have an intervention in this price gouging of the water rates. So again, we went out and got signatures. Those were presented to City Hall. The Detroit area is the latest. They're not the only. It's in Philadelphia, Baltimore, Cleveland, and other cities who's implemented a water affordability. There's been legislation on the state level for water affordability, introduced but not passed. So we need to, keep this item on the table. And we're not, one of the things we have said, we're not with this camp or that camp, because the Neely camp instituted no shut-offs. The Weaver camp, when a delegation of us from the community went to Philadelphia, they were having a conference on this water affordability situation. When we went down there, we were shocked and surprised to see Huey Newsom, the CFO from the city of Flint. We like, what you doing down here? You know, but he was sent there to try to get information to begin the process of looking into a water affordability.
Right.
So what we say off the bat, we not here in no camp. Our camp is water affordability and relief for the residents. So we don't want nobody to be thin-skinned about this, that we're trying to attack somebody. We're trying to get, we don't have an opportunity like we have now with the opera money. The city of Detroit, now there's been other plans, as I've said, but the city of Detroit is the most recent. They pitched their plan started August first, that's pretty quick for you to roll out a plan and it start in August first. And theirs is a tier system and it's based on your income. And the lowest level of payment is $18.
Right. It's by income.
$18. That's water and sewage. The next tier is $43, and the other tier is $56. And the Detroit, and this is the thing that's really, is close to home because Detroit is not that far.
Right.
And we in the state of Michigan with all the Great Lakes. But the thing of it is that you got Detroit Metro, the fiduciary who implements that, and you know, they see the clients and sign them up. And because we in Flint, unlike the rest of the county, is on Detroit water, then to me, it's a duh. You got that in Detroit Water and Sewer Department, we on Detroit Water, the Out County's on KWA, it should be easy to transition us, right? Because they're using Metro, they have another program called RAP, it's Water Assistance. They are the ones that handle that program too, but they're handling the water affordability plan. And if you're on the RAP program, the assistance program, they automatically put you on the affordability plan. Now, this agency is here every Thursday in City Hall, signing our residents up for the RAP program. But if I was in Detroit and I went down there to get on the RAP, I could get on the water affordability. But I can't do that in Flint. Why? Because we don't have a program here. And they have said that they leverage funds from, I know they use opera funds, but we have not been able to, chase that down. But when they rolled it out, they said they leverage funds from the state, regional, and federal. That's what they said. So I'm just here to say, give you all an update. We're continuing to fight for this. The timing is urgent because not only do we need it, but we got these millions of dollars in our city and people suffering. Stop it. We're not gonna put up with that. That's crazy. They used to always tell, well, we can't afford it and we don't have the budget. No. You've got millions of dollars. We should see some dynamic change in the quality of life for residents of the city of Flint. And there's no excuse for it because other cities have done it. So, again, I wanna thank the committee who endorsed this as a concept and maybe some of our other community guys.
It just seems like to me, we can't even get the first step of water affordability without getting the calculation. Because we can't even calculate tiers for affordability. So we need that information like yesterday, so we can start step one.
Do you have information about how much the city is paying for water?
The city of Detroit or Flint?
Flint.
You mean the wholesale?
Like, how much does it cost them to provide water
That's
to
why we
people?
wanted to talk to
Yeah,
CFO.
yeah.
Right.
That's what we need to know.
That was,
That's a
I think
starting
that was
point.
part of the ordinance that you read.
Yeah, it's all
Was,
part of
the part of the report that was how it was calculated, what were the city's costs? Was
Yeah.
on your list in that ordinance.
Yes, Larry, and
I
quick time
apologize.
check.
Yeah.
We-
What's
I'll
your
make
name?
it
I'm sorry,
brief.
what was your name?
Lakeisha.
Definitely wanna have a little bit of time for other conversation, but go ahead, Larry.
It's time for my semi-annual question. What is the water loss rate? Because if we're losing 40% of our water through leaks,
Yes.
then, we're being charged for that loss.
Yes.
And that needs to be addressed. Do they know where the leaks are? Are the leaks being repaired? Is there a budget set aside to address that?
What about the infrastructure bill?
I know that
I'm
Mike
just saying.
has said how that was spent, so if you want specifics on that.
They didn't already spend.
The water infrastructure bill?
the infrastructure bill, the Biden bill, that we spent millions of dollars across the country for infrastructure, but also water was named directly in that infrastructure bill.
I believe that they did improvements.
I don't think that's fully spent out.
No, he told me he was putting in an application to the state revolving fund for something or other. Actually, that's something I really wanna know, is what kinds of funds is the, water department actively applying for right now? And why? And like, you know, I just wanna have a better sense of when they're identifying some kind of need that they have, that they can't meet with the resources they've got, where are they looking for help? Who's in charge of that application process? Do they have enough assistance? Cause you know, in a lot of environmental, you know, justice communities, that's often a problem, is that the folks who are running the show don't necessarily have the capacity to be able to apply for all these grants the way other cities can. So, you know, when I've brought this up to Mike in the past, he's given me the impression that, oh, you know, they got it under control, but we don't really even know what they're doing when it comes to this stuff. Like, I anyway, would like to have a fuller picture of what money are they seeking out right now and why, and you know, is there any way that process could be made more effective?
And transparent.
And transparent, yes. Okay,
But back to the water loss rate.
yes.
The study was done in 2013 or earlier. There's not been a repeat study, and now that's 9 years, and it is still as high as 9%, 40%. And please, don't tell us that we're using a new technology that addresses water leaks without telling us, okay, has the percentage gone down?
Right.
Or
Yeah,
water
it hasn't been
loss.
effective, yeah, yeah.
Because they have accused Flint residents of stealing water.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
All right, I think, you know, if we wanna come back to this and chat any further, you can go to the bathroom. Okay, he needs to go to the bathroom.
Nothing we can do about
That's
that.
gotta be a priority,
That's the
but yeah.
emergency there.
You gotta probably,
Yeah, hey, he's going,
Is he
will you go
comfortable
with,
with that?
Mr. Sean here, our friend Mr.
I'll take you,
Sean?
buddy.
Would that be okay? If he shows you where the bathroom is, and then Quinn knows what to do once he gets there.
I'm not gonna.
Right.
All right. Okay, so I did just want to briefly kind of introduce this topic. So we have had a number of people express interest in being on this council, and some months ago, I was asked by Kiana and Lottie at the city if we as a council would make some kind of official recommendation around how to onboard new council members. There, you know, the way that the council was assembled initially, I think, was a little bit last minute because the city was facing a citation from Eagle. And so, anyway, we won't get into all of that, but suffice to say that there wasn't necessarily a lot of consistency around how people were approached in the first place, and here we are. You know, I think we've got a good group, but we've also got people out there in the community who are interested, enthusiastic. It would be great to have them on board sooner than later, because we know that that's a process. Not only do they have to be nominated by the mayor, they've got to be approved by the council. That will take a while. So I heard from 5 people who were interested, including Peterson, who's here with us tonight. And they've been waiting around now for, I don't know what it's been, Peterson, probably 6 months or something, but it's been a while. And so we need to make a decision about what kinds of criteria we want to have in place, if any, when we get these kinds of applications or expressions of interest from community members.
So does the mayor or the council have criteria?
My sense, coming from the city, that Faith, I don't know if you can speak to this a little bit more.
Very good question.
Yeah, is that there really weren't very consistent criteria. I mean, as we know, several members of this council ended up on here in part because they were already on the technical advisory committee. And so they, you know, people are just kind of shifted over in that case. I mean, in my case, like, you know, it was a little bit random, you know, how all of that happened. And I don't know how it happened with everybody else, but, so, I mean, I think it varied from individual to individual. So, you know, one of the things that the city was kind of insisting on was that people at least send in a CV. I say CV, because I mean, a resume, I'm sorry,
and,
that's my academic.
Did you have to do that? Yeah, we
Yeah.
had to.
Yeah, so the people who are on here now all sent in resumes. But, you know, I guess part of my concern is that I'm just imagining that there might be residents out there who are interested, but don't necessarily have like a
Right.
resume
Right.
sitting around, or
Right.
really necessarily experience with putting together or something like that. I don't think we want that to be a barrier
Right.
for people. So I'm wondering if we wanna have any criteria at all, or if somebody's interested, I mean, unless there's some glaring red flag, and I'm not sure what that would be, you know, we hand their name over to the mayor, and I mean, the mayor ultimately has to decide who to nominate officially. We can make a recommendation, but
Well, the
We
reason I
don't
asked
nominate
that
anybody.
question is I'd hate to have some criteria that we establish.
Right.
And the sort of the thought being that, okay, here's the criteria, and then the applicants come to find that there's other criteria when they get to the level of the
Exactly.
city council. So,
Yeah, all I heard was the resume or CV, and I had the same opinion that not everybody has a resume.
right,
That might be a burden for some people.
Right.
Maybe
But
just a
I would,
statement of
yeah.
interest.
Then can I say, like,
Yeah.
probably the most important thing is the person shows up, probably, right? Because if they're a member and they're not showing up, then you can't have quorum. So I would say to have something in place that if they're not, like, if they want to be a member, make that easy, but then if they don't show up for meetings, then they don't get to be a member anymore.
That's an interesting thought, because I would say, you know, we barely have quorum tonight. I received one message from somebody who had an emergency, health-related emergency. And I didn't hear from the other council members. It is, with all the challenges we're facing trying to get city folks here, it makes it really difficult to have another set of challenges getting council members here, or getting people to reply to emails or anything. I mean, it basically doubles the workload anytime we need to do anything.
so
as a group.
part of the application process is a statement of commitment.
So that's an interesting thought. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, so I kind of don't want to leave here tonight without being able to follow up with the people like Peterson who've expressed interest. Now, I heard from 5 people. One of the 5 is here tonight. I haven't gotten any emails from the other 4. Maybe they're not interested anymore. I think Peterson has clearly demonstrated that he's both interested and committed to being part of our conversations.
Right.
So how do we want to put that into language then, that point about commitment? Because we probably are going to want something pretty official here that we can point to in case there's ever any argument.
So, I mean, you could either ask for a statement, why you know that you'll be able to attend, or you have them fill out on the school board application, there's days of the week and hours of the day, and you put X's in the areas where you can't help, you can't be a part of it.
Right.
And I would imagine somebody's counting up all the X's. I mean,
Right.
it's either, when would you not be available, or make a commitment here, and that's what I would support.
So we could ask for a statement of commitment expressing the intention to consistently attend meetings.
Right.
And, okay, and then if somebody's not attending, I mean, so we don't have bylaws, like we never managed to adopt bylaws as a council. That's something we could come back to and revisit, but we could put something in the bylaws that says,
Right.
you gotta be here 75% of the time or whatever, and if you're
Sure.
not, then
Right.
you're out, right? But we don't have that as of yet, right? So I guess we could just, for now, at least ask for kind of a general statement of commitment to attend consistently. Would
Right.
that be?
And then
a good way of
maybe
putting it?
you could reach out to those who aren't coming and say, this is the thing that we're asking now of new members, is a commitment to 75% attendance, or whatever the number is. And you haven't been coming to the meetings, and so I'm just simply asking you about your level of commitment.
So I'm wondering if we could say responsiveness to communications. I mean, because that's on my end. I know emails fall through the cracks and stuff, but you know, I'm finding myself in some cases having to send out 3 emails to get 1 response, and sometimes even then I'm not getting responses, you know, from everybody, just to be blunt about it. So, you know, I don't know like how we measure that exactly. I mean, we can measure who's up however many meetings, but this kind of responsiveness.
Yeah, I think
don't
that's
know,
really
but-
something
I
for
would
you
just start
to
there.
deal with those
Yeah.
individuals directly,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
making it a.
Okay, fair enough. Do we want to put a number on it, like 75% attendance? Or, and like, we'd have to decide like what time period, or like over the course of a year?
Exactly,
or-
I would say, failure to be present for 3 consecutive meetings.
Okay,
There,
I
that
think
would be
that's,
better.
Thank you.
yeah,
That would,
I second that,
yeah.
Because we don't have a fixed meeting
yeah,
schedule.
that's the other issue that we're running into, and why this is coming up a lot, and a lot more work for you, but if we just decided we're gonna stick with quarterly meetings, and we said it's gonna be,
At least 4 dates this year.
yes, it would help, I think, a lot of,
Okay, so that was gonna be my next thing, is that where we wanna go moving forward? I mean, so, in this case, we had a meeting in June, here we are in October. That's a pretty big gap between meetings, but is it a gap people are comfortable with? Cause at one point, we were meeting every month. It's proving harder and harder to make that happen, I mean, just being real about it. It's basically as soon as this meeting ends, you know, I've gotta get busy,
Yeah.
like, planning for the next meeting when we're doing it like that.
Then I think quarterly makes sense. I don't remembering, can we have a subcommittee on affordability, for instance, that is doing work in the interim that is moving things forward so that we have an agenda?
My understanding is that we can have a 2-person subcommittee, and that it cannot be larger than that.
Okay.
I mean, so on affordability, I know Naira and Larry, at one point, we talked about you guys, you know, putting your heads together and coming up with some kind of a statement. I mean,
We are constrained by the open meetings act.
Yeah.
If we have more than 2, then.
right, and the same is true of the bylaws. So the only other committee we've had up to this point is the bylaws committee, and that was me and Gina, right? Anything that involves more than 2 people and any kind of decision-making has to be in public with notice and all the rest of that. So, yeah, I mean, and we've talked about that as a structure in the past, is that maybe we as a group come together 4 times a year, but in the meantime, we've got these subcommittees chipping away at stuff. You know, at one point, we were looking at the CCRs, the annual water quality report documents, and, you know, we personally, I still think it would be great if we could try to make that into something like a meaningful document and have a couple people working on that. So, I mean, we could send people off between meetings with kind of jobs. And then, but the problem is, like, because we don't have consistent participation, it's not, you know, other than from a few, you know, handful of people, I don't know. I mean, I worry about assigning things to folks who I'm not sure are gonna be here at the next meeting.
Well, it seems, I mean, maybe we do water affordability and one other, you know, just do 2 things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
better than
Yeah.
0.
just get one done, and that's better than what
Yeah.
we're,
And just go for it.
Okay, well, so it's 7:06. I mean, I feel like I have what I need as far as, the folks who have expressed interest in joining the council. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to, communicate to them that we are asking for, a statement of commitment that involves consistent attendance. I'll mention the 3 consecutive meeting stipulation. And then as long as people express that commitment, then I'll just pass their names along to the mayor, and then at that point, it's out of our hands.
yeah,
Right,
that's
that's
nice.
right. Yeah.
Okay, so,
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question? How many people I know one of the things in the previous was number of people local, outside.
Yeah.
What's the, you said you have a number of people that are interested.
They're all local.
Great.
Good, that's what it should be, yeah.
And we should be clear about the time commitment that folks from Wayne State and University of Michigan have made, over the last 7 years, and how essential they are to our functioning. And, the city council should not lose sleep if we have 2 or 3 folks with specific expertise.
Right.
Who have always been of assistance.
Well, and I think it's worth remembering, like, we don't have a civil engineering or environmental engineering department. Actually, I just learned that the U of M Flint now is hiring people in environmental engineering.
I have no knowledge of this.
Totally news to
At the
me.
Not
same time, they're
environmental
talking
science.
about shutting that school down,
Yeah,
so.
well, yeah, or making themselves more like Kettering
It
or,
might be environmental science, but I can
More
find
of a
out,
technical.
yeah.
well, if you look at their website, you should look at the website, at the latest updates to the, yeah, I'll find you the link. But anyway, but it's an important point
Yeah.
because, you know, Nancy and Sean have a very particular kind of expertise that relates to water systems that we don't have in abundance in Flint. And so, you know, I think there are instances where it is really important to find the right person for the job, whether or not they're in the community. But we are also committed to this being a council that is very much not just in the community, but of the community. And so having as many community folks on the council as possible, I think makes a lot of sense from that perspective. And if we can add to our numbers with folks who are gonna come in with a lot of commitment and enthusiasm and ideas, all the better. So, as far as the subcommittee, I feel like unless somebody wants to disagree with me, I don't know if we're at a place where we can really say concretely, given that we're over time here, what we wanna do with the whole subcommittee thing. But maybe we could at least decide, do we wanna try to meet again before the year is up, or do we wanna look at the first quarter of next year for our next meeting?
I think if you right now say this date or this week in January,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and then
That's
you can
smart.
say to Mike Brown, put this on your calendar, and, you know, that gives us, it should make it easier
I'm
to,
just being real, he might not even be there.
Oh, by then,
I
well.
mean, really,
there
I'm
was-
just being real.
Absolutely.
yeah.
true.
Well,
We need him to get in here and tell what he know before that happens. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't happen, but if he.
but that would happen in November, right, if it was to happen?
Well, in January, he would be gone, if, more than likely, if that's possible.
I don't think we're gonna be able to
That's
meet
how-
again before the election, though.
She's talking about
These
Mike
officials
Brown.
may
Or
not
he might-
say anything until the election is over, cause I think that.
Well, that's worth remembering is that we don't know what we're gonna be dealing with in a month's time here in terms of what kind of, you know, what the administration looks like, how they're gonna approach this council. I haven't heard of either candidate speaking about this on the record, on the campaign trail. I mean, frankly, it would be nice to know, like, what the intentions are towards this group.
I'd like for us to set up a meeting, if it ends up being canceled, then it ends.
Yeah, I agree.
But, and to Claire's point, that it should be in December.
Oh, in December as opposed to January?
Right, so that it should,
Before it should be
Yeah.
done before the election. I think. we
Oh,
need to
well, then
figure out
that's-
some
but
kind of
that's-
way. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
because some of the questions you ask are just objective, factual questions.
Right, yeah.
We're not asking him to come and give a campaign speech, but we have, I mean, we're sophisticated enough to know when you're not telling everything,
sure.
you know, and we need to know that. You know, so, I mean, I'm just saying, really, it should be something that could be done before the election. There's been some very significant events the last couple months.
Yeah.
The incompletion of the pipe, water replacement, the big, water main break, the people that's left, are they asking residents, why don't you want your water replaced? What are residents telling you? I mean, some of this stuff is just informational. I'm just saying, if you get somebody else in there, it's gonna be skewed and, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, so that would be meeting in the next, two and a half
I
weeks.
think
Yeah,
we have two issues here.
Yeah.
One is the regular meeting of the water council, and I would suggest that the January date, we should hold that, but the questions that Claire points out, these are questions that need to be answered like now.
Yeah.
So, given that we have identified a way of following up on the questions.
Right.
I'm wondering if we could just make an effort to push that information
No,
out
we
between now and.
we provide the questions and we request that they provide that responses within 2 weeks.
Before the election, right?
And then that way, we will have
I
that
mean,
and put it in the meeting
let's
minutes.
be real.
Right.
Right, and then that gets.
Yeah,
Who's gonna know if they do come in, how are those folks gonna answer the questions? We gotta get the answers
Yeah.
from the people that's
Right.
on the ground right now.
Yeah,
Even
that's
if they
a good
don't
point.
tell us everything.
Right.
They owe answers,
Right.
to you.
Right.
So we really are gonna follow up on that 2 week.
That, we will make sure, we'll just compare notes and make sure that we worded the questions
Just
properly
in the minutes.
and didn't miss anything. I will submit them immediately to Rob and Mike and tell them that we would like answers within 2 weeks, and then,
If you get
Could
that
I
to
say-
by Friday, then like 2 weeks.
Could we have the questions part of the minutes that are on that site? And
absolutely.
then their responses in 2 weeks on that site? As
So
part of the minutes,
I'm not
added
sure
to
how
the-
that works, but, so
I think
we,
you just
we,
have to take that document down, add
And
the
then
questions
replace
and
it.
then them.
Right,
Put
we
it
just
up,
edit
put
it,
it, put it
right.
back up, and then at that point,
Right.
we'll have something.
And then we
that
can pass
share
the
around.
word out that everybody needs to go look, right?
All right, so for January, shall we say, concretely then, when we wanna meet,
Wednesdays.
I would need it to be at least the second week of that month. One of the reasons, so this has been another real complication on the logistical side, is finding a time when the YouTube channel is open and people are available.
it's not
and-
tonight,
And it's
so
not tonight, I know.
let's just do
We
it.
couldn't
Yeah, let's
manage
just
to
do
do
it.
tonight.
Like that idea, just
Yeah.
do it.
Let's just do it, yeah,
just do
people,
it.
I
Okay.
think people are more likely to be able to attend when they have a.
Regular time.
Well, we wanna give people time to come back from the holiday and stuff, so I would need it to be at least the second week, third week.
So like the 17th?
17th?
Excuse me, did somebody ask about the Legionella uptick in the Legionella case?
Oh, no, we didn't register
I
that as a
think that should
question.
be on the question list.
Okay, technically, I've got another meeting scheduled for the 17th, I realize, ugh. Yeah, the next week is tough for me too, I could do the 10th, or,
I have information from the health department that there has not been an uptick in Legionella cases, and I'd be happy to provide you a copy of the statement from the deputy health officer.
Okay.
The one that was reported in the news in July.
Well, I guess what I was saying is bacteria, not necessarily Legionella uptick, but the bacteria.
They
So-
only report infections.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah,
don't
they don't.
report the
Well,
types
that's
of
still good to
bacteria.
know though.
They're not restricted to Flint, because I'm on the board of health.
Okay.
And I was expecting to get a report Monday, but they just released the latest numbers today. It doesn't isolate Flint from the rest of the county.
So it's a reportable disease. If there had been a positive case in Genesee County or the city of Flint, the county health department would have that information. And I asked about the one that the press release went out on in July. That was a suspected case that ended up not being confirmed. So after further testing, that was not determined to be a case. And as far as I know, there have been no positive cases in Flint since then. And that itself was also not a case.
So are you proposing a date then?
well, so, if we're doing it on a Tuesday, which I think I would have to do, Tuesday or Wednesday. I could do the 10th or the 31st.
Either one is fine.
Anybody have a preference?
It's gonna snow no matter what.
Yeah, that's right, pick which day it's gonna be a snowstorm.
Yeah.
It's the worst weather up here by the time we get here. I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
Pick a date and I'll.
should we say the 31st?
Anybody object in the room? People that attended today get to choose.
Yeah, 31st. I'm calling it.
That is a Tuesday?
That's a Tuesday.
That's Halloween, I don't
No,
know.
no,
No,
January.
October.
January.
What time?
Uh,
5:30?
5:30 to 7-ish.
It's pretty.
I'm surprised I haven't tried to kick us out of it yet. They're
Pretty
usually pretty
strict.
strict about that.
Well, that'll be great.
Oh, it could be a party.
That's the
So
after
the
party.
31st.
31st, 5:30 to 7 in one of the rooms in this building. I'll have to see what's available. This was the one I could get tonight.
It's a nice room.
Yeah, actually, I think it's.
Can we adjourn the meeting, please?
So bring
I'm
your
sorry, I
Twitter.
don't wanna rush, but I need to,
Yes,
I need
yeah,
to.
yeah. Okay, anything else?
Looking at the
to
date
add?
of 2023 on it.
I think we're done with our agenda, and I've learned that you don't have to take a vote to adjourn at that
No.
point, so, we're done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.